Hello, my name is David Parsons. I work for Spirent Communications. I am the Technical Marketing Engineer for Spirent's Automation Platform Technologies. Today I'll be discussing a Wi-Fi use case called rate versus range. What is rate versus range? Rate versus range is the relationship between the Wi-Fi signal strength and the speed at which data can be transferred over that signal. So this is one of our key methodologies when we're determining our Wi-Fi performance. And how we're testing it is by degrading the Wi-Fi signal or attenuating that signal while running traffic across that network.
We also have our topologies, which our topologies are how we take our resources and stitch them together into a functional system under test. So here's our system under test that we're going to be using for the Wi-Fi test case. So we have two gateway vendors, an attenuator that is going to attenuate an RF signal from a STC Wi-Fi card. STC stands for Spirent TestCenter. It's our traffic generation product. Now it's going to be, the traffic is actually going to be backhauled through our Ethernet interface to the gateway. So it's going to be, what we're going to do is we're going to test one gateway and then we'll test the other gateway, and we'll chart the throughput from a download perspective for each of those vendors and compare them against each other. So once we have our topology created and our resources managed, you'll notice that all of these are accessible. We'll go over to our automation assets, and now we can actually take a test case that we have, as an example, this rate versus range test case that we have, and execute against that topology. So we have some of the options when we're scheduling our test case. Let's look at the obvious ones that we'll probably do the most is schedule these things for after night execution. Most of the executions here, and this is the advantages of having a scheduled a test as a service scheduler, is where we can offload the load on our topologies, or the contention on our equipment to after hours when there's no manual users. So we can schedule it here. We can set the date, time. We can set it. Let's say we want to set it for 8 o'clock this evening. We can tell it to repeat. If we have a regularly occurring sanity suite, we can actually set that schedule up. Once we have the schedule, we can also set the topology. In this instance, we want to use that rate versus range test case. Now we have the option of auto-reserving that topology, and this is really handy if you want to just run the test case. It's going to reserve that topology. It's going to actually execute the test case against that topology, and then it's going to release that reservation so that others can use the topology. It also, if you set up multiple test cases to execute, and there are maybe different users that are trying to use this equipment, it'll actually queue those test cases up based on the schedule. Now, once we also have parameters that we can drive into our test cases, this is actually really handy when we look at trying to take one test case and really expand on its capabilities. So we can actually data drive those test cases to do and test different aspects of our Wi-Fi performance. In this instance, you can see here I have an attenuation start. That's the attenuation at which each of the gateway vendors will start the testing. What is the maximum attenuation that I'm going to go to, and what is the incremental step while I'm attenuating? This is going to be in a giant loop. Essentially, it's going to go in, it's going to start traffic, it's going to set the attenuation to the starting dB. It's going to start some traffic. It's going to pull out the measurements of the throughput. It's then going to increment the attenuation. It's going to check the throughput, and it's going to keep in that loop until it reaches its maximum dB. You can set some pass-fail criteria here, and again, these are the parameters that are set for this test case. They can be modified, changed. These are ones that I've defined for this particular use case that I've set up here. I could also have it set up so that it can actually just do a profile. So if I don't want to set some pass-fail criteria based on the throughput of the test case, I can set those both to 0, and it's just going to characterize the different gateway vendors' throughput metrics. Now we can actually run that test case. And you notice once that test case goes into running, it's going to be scheduled into our scheduler. While we're looking at that, or while that's executing, we can actually look at a prior run. So here's a execution where I have my the execution report. The test case's overall status is passed. I have a topology that has the topology that we looked at, the topology we specified for the execution. I can the test case name, some specifics about the test case, how long did it take to run, what is the duration, what was the user, the owner, that sort of thing. It also has some execution messages. This will tell me, these are again defined inside the test case that lets the user know specifics about the test case. And of course, this is 4 messages. We can be more extensive, more verbose. We can tell the user at particular ranges what the throughput would be. But of course, we've taken all of that data, the data within the loop, and we've charted it onto a graph. Both our vendors have a specific performance metrics.